Tonight, for the first time, inside Britain's battlefield ER in Afghanistan.
Let's make sure this is immobilised now.
As doctors and nurses from the National Health Service join the war against the Taliban. Saving lives under fire.
Can you film, mate? I need to start helping.
Taking on the suicide bombers.
To start treating some of these people.
Picking up the pieces.
The biggest killer in military penetrating trauma is loss of blood.
Face to face with the realities of war.
How would I feel if this was my child?
GCS 12, pulse BP 5, treatment O2 count 1 to right arm, morphine 5 milligrams, IV fluids.
April 2008. This is an army field hospital.
106. Equal movements to the chest.
Doctors and nurses are working on a man who's been blown up by a landmine. The blood isn't real, neither was the landmine.
How many's on there? Is that 2 each, is it? Right, that's the first.
This is a training exercise involving part-time territorial army medics who are about to go to war. This ER and the hospital it's in is an exact replica of the one they will be working in when they get to Afghanistan.
The trauma that they're receiving is quite horrific. You do not know what is going to happen. You've just got to be prepared for the worst and be prepared for any eventuality.
Got Lions! Got Matkins!
Territorial Army Headquarters.
Got Ryan!
The rehearsals are over. 100 men and women from Britain's 203rd Field Hospital Regiment are being mobilised.
First of all, make sure you get your body armour and your helmet and your day sack. Double check you've got your passport with you.
They face a 3-month tour of duty. Every one of them has volunteered for this mission. Each has a full-time job in the NHS.
Hello A&E, Dave Hawkins here.
All have been given time off work to go to Afghanistan.
He's a good boy.
Sue James is a grandmother and former NHS children's nurse. She's been what the tabloid press call a weekend warrior for 6 years.
We get called the Saturday and Sunday Club, so, you know, there are quite a few varieties of things that we get called. It's the excitement and the enjoyment, and it's meeting different people. You make such good friends, and it is different. The camaraderie is completely different to working within the NHS. I think the worst part of going away is going to be, you know, leaving the family. My grandson's only 2 weeks old, so that's going to be really difficult.
This will be the second time Captain James, as she now is, will have been to Afghanistan. But most of these doctors and nurses have never been to a war zone before.
It's my last day.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you, darling.
I'll see you again. There you go.
Monday to Friday, David Hawkins is an NHS trauma nurse from Wales, a father of 3 who's renowned for being well turned out and handy with a knife.
This is just my day-to-day desert kit. I've ironed my tops, and tonight now I'm just going to iron my trousers before I pack them, and just hope that there's an ironing board in Bastion. I just feel personally I've got things that I can offer. I just feel it's something that we're able to give back, particularly to our frontline service personnel.
Hawkins is going with his best friend Simon Lawrence, an NHS radiographer who works with terminally ill cancer patients. Lawrence has already been to Iraq and Afghanistan and is a TA captain.
You do have to have an emotional resilience to work in a cancer hospital, I think, but it's different from the sort of emotional resilience and the sort of emotion you get with working in an operational environment where it's very life-threatening, it's very, very quick, it's very fast.
The trip to Afghanistan won't be that fast, 3,600 miles in an RAF transporter.
Oh, hang on, now it's getting closer and it's getting closer, and there's excitement, there's fear, there's apprehension, there's the thought about leaving family behind.
Britain's war in Afghanistan is being fought in the south.
Suspected pressure plate ID that he actually stepped on. Shrapnel to the right inner thigh.
The NHS doctors and nurses are heading for Camp Bastion, deep inside enemy territory, the headquarters of the war machine. 7 kilometres long, 3 kilometres wide, surrounded by 20-foot high concrete walls. Home to 6,000 Allied troops and a £10 million military field hospital. It deals with around 2,000 casualties a year. Treating the latest is junior surgeon Hugo Guthrie, an Army Major, one of 5 ER doctors who are always on their toes.
What we do is quick thinking, fast acting, and there isn't room for passengers.
Dr. Guthrie doesn't intend to be a passenger. He's been an Army doctor for 8 years, but he's still only 33.
I'm seeking to, earn my spurs in this environment because I'm still learning my sort of craft, to have an opportunity to put everything that you've learned, into practice. That's where I get my biggest buzz and my most enjoyment.
Guthrie's an orthopaedic surgeon, fast becoming a specialist in war wounds.
Can you feel your feet?
For a battle surgeon, this is about as tough as it can get.
Let me just start on the good side. Can you feel me touching you here? Can you feel me touching you there?
Dr. Guthrie's patient is an Army private who stepped on a landmine.
There's a large lump of metal that, from the first X-ray, looks like it's, an internal piece of metal. That looks like what he's got, a broken thigh bone.
This man's war is over. His leg will have to be pinned. The surgery will be done here, and then he will be flown home to Britain. Apart from the ER, the hospital has 2 state-of-the-art operating theatres.
If you're not able to perform in that environment, then you shouldn't be in that environment.
35,000 feet above Afghanistan, the RAF transporter carrying the NHS doctors and nurses who are going to take over the running of Bastion's hospital are in the danger zone. Descent.
All lights in the cabin will be extinguished and it will remain that way till on the ground.
These planes are prime targets for the Taliban. The cabin blackout is part of a stealth landing to avoid their rockets. Everyone will also wear full body armour.
People were so tired. People didn't really know where they were because they hadn't slept for, probably 2 days properly.
For the volunteers, this is their defining moment. Few have any real idea of what lies ahead. Suicide bombers. Mass casualties.
We are more than likely getting a 5-year-old with penetrating chest trauma.
A baptism of fire.
The helicopter's taken a couple of hits.
In southern Afghanistan at Camp Bastion, it's day 1 for the NHS doctors and nurses who are going to be running Britain's field hospital for the next 3 months.
You've come from somewhere where there's lots of grass and everything, and then all of a sudden you're in the middle of the desert with nothing around you.
Nothing around you but the Taliban, who are outside the walls, so everyone must be armed. For people who are used to saving lives rather than taking them, it's a stark reminder that they are now at war.
Captain Shepherd! It's just quite nice to have a weapon. This is my personal weapon for this tour. More senior officers will get pistols. Have you cleared it? No. Cock it and use the holder over device to do a check, okay?
That's forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Bastion is no home from home, even if it does serve traditional English tea.
Even by my standards, this is a quite appalling cup of tea.
We've currently got 10 people in the hospital, 3 with DMV, 1 in ICU.
The man with the task of commanding the volunteers is a full-time Army officer and Falklands War veteran, Colonel Phil Hubbard. This is his last tour of duty. Back home, it's his job to persuade NHS staff to join up and go to war.
Today they join for very different reasons than they would have done, 10, 15 years ago. They know, they listen to the news, so they can see the challenges. So what brings people to that? I think it is the attraction of using their skills in an environment that is unusual to them, and they want to challenge themselves.
It's not long before they get their first challenge. Not a wounded soldier though, a 12-month-old boy who's been scalded by boiling water in his mother's kitchen. He needs help fast. His name is Basha, and he's already won the heart of at least one former children's nurse.
When little baby Basha came in, you would think, gosh, you know, if this had happened to my grandson, Thomas, it would be absolutely devastating.
While Nurse James and the ER team work on Basha, the rest of the volunteers settle in. And there's good news for Nurse Hawkins and the best mate, Captain Lawrence. Hawkins has found the iron he wanted, and Lawrence has a home video camera.
Here we are in the accommodation of the soldiers. Now, by observing them closely, we can see them in their natural habitat.
Tell me, Daddy, what did you do when you were fighting with... Well, they did a lot of ironing.
Simon and I think, are very much on the same wavelength. Both the same age. We've both been working in the NHS for a very long time. And we're extroverts. There's no getting away from that.
The British Army will always look their very best. And it is a tradition that we must keep all our kit clean and obviously ironed.
The medics are happy because Bastion is heavily guarded and fortified, a safe haven far removed from the front line.
It doesn't feel like warfare to us because we're medics. This is what we do. We care for people when they're injured, and they could be injured in road traffic accidents, or they could be injured by, improvised explosive devices, mortars, rocket-propelled grenades, bombs, bullets, whatever. Here, at the moment, the security situation as it is, you don't have to carry your body armour, your helmet, or your weapon with you. This is probably one of the safest places in Afghanistan, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The haven no longer feels as safe. There's been an explosion outside the camp, close enough to concern the garrison and the medics. The hospital and its patients might be at risk. Colonel Hubbard must find out what happened.
Shook the building, so it's certainly a large explosion. Can you see anything over there?
About 300 metres that way. We've got what looks like an IED's gone off.
Really?
Yeah, with a brick convoy. There's a couple of guys on the deck. BFA's just gone up.
Yeah, they just cleared the area now.
Well, it looks like a brick convoy that was heading back to Sharabak. And something's gone off in a mound on the ground, and it's caught somebody in it, but I can't see exactly who it is.
The explosion was a suicide car bomb at a British Army checkpoint. One soldier's been caught in it.
Have we got a name for this chap yet?
Thompson.
Dr. Guthrie is duty surgeon.
What are you doing? We're at the hospital at Camp Bastion, okay? It's just down the road from the cookhouse. You know where the cookhouse is at Bastion, don't you?
Another chance for the self-styled rookie to impress.
Pelvis is stable, non-tender. Does it hurt here, yes or no? No. Here? No. Here? No. Here? No. Here? No. Here? No. Can you just reassess his chest again for me? We start some fluid, yeah. Yeah. Okay, chest x-ray. He's got no human pneumothorax, lung fields are normal, he's got no obvious rib fractures, no other associated bony injury.
Private Thompson has had a close call. His hands are burned, but otherwise he's unhurt. He knows it, and so does his doctor.
I get involved in what happens emotionally, and I get involved in the process technically. And that is exciting, to be challenged both in terms of what you're doing, but also where you're doing it, and doing it as part of the whole armed forces team.
For everyone, the explosion's been a wake-up call.
That wasn't very far away, and it's our corner of the camp as well. It's about 200 metres from the wall, wasn't it?
Really, really close. You don't realise the potential, really.
They certainly put a dint in our pride that day, and they nearly came and put a dint in us as well.
Bastion on the front line, the British Army is taking on the Taliban. First aid on the battlefield is given by armed medics who accompany every patrol. Men who fight as well as save lives.
We've got a casualty that's come in.
25-year-old Tom Story is one of them. A full-time soldier, Lance Corporal Story has only one aim when someone gets hit: stop the bleeding as quickly as possible.
And the biggest worry is blood loss. It's all about hemorrhage control. You need to keep the circulating fluid in the body. It's better in the body than out the body.
The way the cap tourniquet works, through the top loop here, whack it on them and wrap it round. If blood's oozing out, you want to try and stem the flow of blood.
Combat medical technicians, they are the young men and women that do the combat first aid, and they're there to stabilise them for us so that we can get out to them, pick them up and bring them back. And they're as crucial to the survival of the soldier as the surgeon on the other end.
Story and the other combat medical technicians don't have state-of-the-art facilities. They work out of makeshift first aid posts near the front line. This one's an abandoned garage.
Our medical facility was a 2-bedded medical facility, could take 2 stretcher cases. It had a doctor and 4 class 1 medics in.
It's all a step-by-step approach with medicine. You troops on the ground should have that and your morphine syringes as a standard. Okay, we'll go on to sort of traumatic amputations now. Rounds may be coming down, you may...
Amputation is every soldier's worst nightmare. Usually caused by landmines and what the military call IEDs, improvised explosive devices, booby traps or suicide bombs. Today, Lance Corporal Story has his full medical kit, as well as body armour, gun and helmet, as he and the parachute regiment patrol the streets of Sakala. A small town 100 kilometres north of Camp Bastion, recently captured from the Taliban, it's one of the most dangerous places in Afghanistan.
Even when someone goes up the street with a motorbike or a push bike, or someone comes up with a wheelbarrow, anything that you think might have explosive in it, you're constantly on edge. Especially with these kids, because apparently the suicide bombers get younger and younger. I think the youngest one was 8 or something like that. So, it could be any one of these boys. You just get brainwashed by the Taliban and their teachings.
Suicide bombs are now routinely used by the Taliban. This year, attacks are up by almost 70%.
Anything you see just makes you more and more nervous, really.
Just be aware of the motorcycles. Let's make sure that they keep the hands on the handlebars of the bikes. Just tell them, indicate to them.
You're scared all the time, and anyone who says they're not scared, in my own personal opinion, is lying.
Casualties are recovered from the front line by a Chinook helicopter, Britain's military air ambulance. It isn't marked with red crosses because this would make it even more of a target for the Taliban. The Chinook can get to any part of the battlefield in around half an hour. On board are hospital doctors and paramedics and armed soldiers to protect them.
Equipped, ready to go, and with it goes a team that's force protection. Force protection is its guard.
This is part of the strategy to get wounded men to the ER quickly without them bleeding to death.
Time for us is the crucial thing. The earlier we can actually intervene, the greater the chance of survival. And that extends our capability from the hospital directly to the injury site to snatch people from the jaws of death.
Uniquely, the onboard medical teams are led by a highly qualified consultant, so that casualties get the best treatment as soon as possible. No other army does this.
What it does essentially is take the emergency room to the patient. Our wounded patients, our casualties in Afghanistan, are 35 minutes flying time away from Camp Bastion. Those patients would die if it wasn't for the medical team in the back of the helicopter.
Consultant Davis is a full-time army doctor. But when he returns home to the UK, he keeps his hand in by working in an emergency department in Glasgow.
I have to work as an emergency medicine specialist when I'm not deployed on operations, and the best way for me to maintain my skill set is to work in a busy NHS hospital.
Dr. Davis might be an old hand, his colleague Vanessa Miles isn't. She's an RAF paramedic on her first shift with Bastion's air ambulance.
It's not daunting because basically I've got a really good team around me who have been out here more than a few times, and with 20 years of nursing experience, hopefully I'll be up to the job as well.
Paramedic Miles joined the RAF from the NHS a year ago, fulfilling a long-time ambition to serve on the front line.
I've got a mixed bunch of friends, and some of them think I'm mad, some of them think it's great, but I'm lucky. My mates are definitely very supportive.
Carter, where are you?
In Musa Kala, Lance Corporal Story's worst fears have been realised. A suicide bomber has struck in the heart of the town, not far from Story's first aid post.
Can you film, mate? I need to start helping out.
A home video camera captures the chaos it's caused.
Whenever you hear an explosion, everyone just stops. Did that just happen? Did I just hear that? Am I going mad? All of a sudden these people just came from everywhere.
There is no civilian ambulance service here, only Story and his fellow medics.
Someone comes in a bad way, it's your job to get that person out alive. Go to work straight away, use everything that you've been taught, all the skills.
Get your team medic pack out, take your kit off to start treating some of these people.
There are many casualties, including a number of children.
Yeah, in there, Dodgy, in there.
The lads felt his pulse, can't get a pulse.
One child is already dead.
Fortunately, the child had died. It was my first major casualty, but I couldn't stop there because I knew there was another one waiting for me when I went in.
No British soldiers have been hurt.
I felt his pulse.
All Story and his team can do is to try and stop as much bleeding as possible until help can reach them. But will it get there in time, and can the NHS doctors and nurses save the day?
Definitely getting a surgical airway head injury patient. We are more than likely getting a 5-year-old with penetrating chest trauma.
And risking life and limb inside the air ambulance under fire. In southern Afghanistan, Lance Corporal Story and his army medical team have been overwhelmed by the casualties from the suicide bomb in the heart of Musa Kala. One child dead and many more seriously injured. He needs help fast. 100 kilometres away at Camp Bastion, the medical emergency response team is already on its way. This incident is so serious that British commanders have decided to send its air ambulance and Dr. Davis to bring the injured back to Bastion's hospital. For Vanessa Miles, the rookie paramedic, this is the baptism she's been waiting for.
All the information that we had was that there'd been a suicide IED bomber and that there were casualties on the ground.
Inside the hospital, a red alert is in full swing. Mass casualties on the way.
Update.
Running the ER is an NHS volunteer from Bristol, Dr. Adam Brown, a TA captain who's on his first tour of duty.
Definitely getting a surgical airway head injury patient. We are more than likely getting a 5-year-old with penetrating chest trauma and 4 others of unknown injuries at this stage.
It's not just the casualties that Captain Brown's worried about.
The Taliban know that if they generate mass casualties, the helicopter will go out, and knowing that, there's a more than reasonable chance that some of these may be traps designed to snare helicopters, not the civilian life and things like that.
Everyone in the air ambulance knows this. They're now deep inside enemy territory. prime targets. In the hospital recovery ward, Private Thompson, the soldier burned in the Bastion car bomb, is now fully conscious.
There was a civilian car coming up on the opposite side of the road. It was probably about 25 metres away from me, and that is the last I can remember of the actual vehicle itself. And after that, it was just a blur, and I just remember being laid in the back of the snatch armoured vehicle that we use, and I felt as though I was on fire at the time. Somebody up there has been looking down on me. I feel extremely lucky because, unfortunately, there has been other soldiers in this position who haven't been here to tell the tale.
Private Thompson's not the only one counting his blessings. So is paramedic Miles. The air ambulance has made it to Musakala.
It took us a while to get out there because obviously the risk factor, and we brought in 8 casualties.
When you look at the time it's taken, it's just been horrendous.
It's been over an hour since the explosion, and Dr. Guthrie's a worried man.
We talk about something called the golden hour in both civilian and military trauma management, where we like to get patients to us within an hour. You know, the longer the delay to a care facility like this, you know, the worse the outcome will be.
The air ambulance has picked up 8 wounded civilians, 4 of them young children. Paramedic Miles and Dr. Davis are doing what they do best, keeping the kids alive. They haven't yet left enemy territory, and their worst nightmare has come true. The helicopter is under fire from Taliban machine gunners 500 feet below. As the helicopter gunners fight back, the medical team now know what it's like to be a sitting target. They have 80 kilometers to go, and the doctors and nurses at Bastion still don't know for sure what to expect.
Last night we had the trauma call at 3 o'clock in the morning that ran till 5 o'clock this morning, and then we've been working today, and we're here now waiting for what will theoretically be a minimum. If we get 6 casualties, that'll be a minimum 2 hours, possibly 3.
You're in an environment that you do not know what is going to happen. From minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day.
Even as the damaged helicopter comes into land, the medics on board are still battling to stop their patients from dying.
It'll be interesting to see what we got then, won't it?
Yeah. This could be the beginning of a long night.
Takes off, so
As the ER doctors start to do their job,
Not seeing much there.
that's his dressing.
rookie paramedic Miles and the rest of the medical response team are able to reflect on their baptism of fire.
First shift. I don't really know what to say, to be honest with you.
Oh, where are those slippers now when you need them?
That was quite a good introduction because it was night flying.
Yeah, you could say it was quite a good introduction.
It was night flying. It was
under
under
fire. Rounds
fire.
being put down on the ground. Rounds coming into the
Don't.
aircraft.
My mum might be watching.
Yeah, no, good skills. I think you've passed the apprenticeship.
The crew of the Chinook were flying bloody brilliantly, basically. It's probably one of the more frightening and difficult such missions I've ever been on.
Do you have some for this guy?
Yeah, there's the results. Get the plasma in a minute. Cheers, sir. I need plasma. I need to go back to that level 1 because...
The doctors have managed to stabilize most of the casualties, but one, a 5-year-old girl called Rahima, is barely clinging to life. Her left hand was blown off and shrapnel has penetrated her stomach and other hand.
She's got awful injuries because, the battle between high explosives and, the human body is a pretty one-way affair.
Dr. Guthrie has already amputated most of Rahima's left arm, but he doesn't know yet if enough has been done to save her life.
Blast goes up between the various muscles and tissues and carries with it contamination at a higher level than the actual site of the injury. So although the blast has completely removed her hand, it's also resulted in serious damage to the area from her mid-forearm down, which is why we had to amputate it at the mid-forearm rather than just at the wrist.
Rahima has already touched the heart of Dr. Guthrie.
A little girl here who's been massively wounded by a suicide bomber. He's achieved exactly what he wants to. He's named a beautiful little girl.
The next few hours will be critical for Rahima. All the doctors and nurses can do is to watch and wait and hope that a new day will bring better news. Morning brings little change, but the presence of Rahima and the other suicide bomb casualties on Bastion's recovery ward means other patients must move out. Nurse James is having to discharge Basha, the 12-month-old baby scalded in his mother's kitchen.
I didn't expect so many children to come into the hospital. I thought we might have one or two. I thought they would have gone to their civilian hospital. And little baby Basha would have probably died with the injuries that he had, because the burns are quite bad on his feet and his legs. And with the treatment that he had within our hospital, I don't know if he would have got the same treatment anywhere else.
Nurse James doesn't want to let Basha go, but she must take him to the gates of the camp and hand him over to his father.
It was dreadful. Picked him up, sat him in the front of the Land Rover with myself. I think from picking him up to actually practically get into the front gate, I don't think a word was said.
In Afghanistan, 1 in 5 children don't live to see their 5th birthday.
Okay, you take care. And just to watch them walking up there was devastating, because you're thinking, you've nursed them, you've given them all the treatment, you've given them all the love, care and attention that you can possibly do it, and now it feels as if you're abandoning them. There we are. Shall we go before I cry?
Yeah.
That was really, really difficult. Even though we try not to get attached to these children, I think we have to that little one. So hopefully it's not going to happen, we're not going to have too many more.
Can I have a little listen? Is that okay?
Nurse James may have spoken too soon. 5-year-old Rahima has recovered consciousness. Even though she's still in a bad way, her doctor isn't the only one to fall for her.
1, 2, 3. We didn't think she would live. The injuries that she's had, she's absolutely amazing. She's a real fighter.
She's got those little eyes that stare at you, and she needs your care. And so that's where I have to make sure that I remain objective and slightly divorced from the emotional side of it, and that's not very easy.
Dr. Guthrie hasn't found it easy to divorce himself from Rahima either. Having to amputate her hand was hard enough. Comparing her to his own 18-month-old daughter, inevitably.
It's a lion. As a parent, you do have empathy with the situation that the people there find themselves in. If I was a parent in Afghanistan with a child the same age, I probably wouldn't even have a hospital to go to. There might not even be a doctor within 2 hours' walk. I might have to spend my life savings getting a taxi to drive me to, a town at the other end of the country.
On a mother's side, you would think, how would I feel, if this was my child? A lot of the girls that had children, and the guys, felt the same really, that it is difficult because it could be your child lying in that bed.
While Rahima begins her recovery, Private Thompson, whose hands were burned in the car bomb, is trying to get his doctors to pass him fit for duty and send him back to the front line.
I'm hoping that I'll be able to stay out here and after a couple of days continue working and carrying with the rest of the tour.
That's a hell of a thing to go through. What it's like being so close to a bomb that's designed to kill you
And how he's recovered, mentally, I don't know. Because it's not easy coming back from operations where you've been exposed to that sort of thing and then just throwing yourself back into normal life.
If they're sore with pollen, it's good for you.
Even though Private Thompson wants to be thrown back, the decision can only be made by one man. Bastion burn specialist Major Jones.
There's every chance that we can get you all healed and probably fit to work within about 10 days. So.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's great. I can stay out here with the guys and crack on with the rest of the tour.
As Private Thompson celebrates, little Rahima has found an unusual way to communicate with her nurses.
Rahima likes you to draw a face on your thumb and talk to her thumb because she can't. She hasn't got any of the fingers, she's only got a thumb. She likes you to talk to her with your thumb. She doesn't know what to do with herself, I don't think. She's hot and bothered. And the sad thing about it is you can't even put her in the shower, which I think would cool her down. She did brighten up the whole of the hospital. It was lovely just to have her there, her happy, smiling face.
She captured everybody's heart. The nurses loved her.
Capturing everyone's heart is one thing. Remaining in the military hospital is quite another. Usually civilians are moved to an Afghan hospital as soon as they are out of danger, but Rahima needs urgent skin grafts if the use of her remaining hand is to be saved. Surgery, which can only be done here.
It's first world medicine compared to almost medieval healthcare in Afghanistan. Although, of course, you do have to remind yourself that they've never had an alternative to that.
Guthrie is not alone in his desire to give Rahima more treatment. His fellow doctors support him. But before they can help, they must all convince the man who controls the ER's beds, Lieutenant Colonel Hill.
We've got a fairly strong feeling on this that this is a child who's probably lost a dominant hand. To get good function, it's pretty important that we try and sort this, and with all due respect, we don't know what the facilities are elsewhere.
Our feeling is that we may want to hang on to her until we can sort the hand out, the other hand, and even if it means keeping her here for 10 days or whatever.
Well,
it's just that
that's a big ask.
Well, it is a big ask, but I think we may be bending the rules a little bit. It would be pretty robust elsewhere.
The surgeon's argument is that over half the hospital's beds are empty, so there is room and therefore time to operate.
We're here to provide military surgery, military medicine, military nursing, and it's about keeping the casualty flow going.
It is difficult, but hopefully she will pull through and everything will be sorted out for her. Bless her.
Sorting this one out means persuading all of the top brass.
Our mission is to support the UK forces. That's what we're there to do. I have to be very clear when we start admitting and taking on work of what I'm doing, so it has no impact whatsoever on the UK's ability to conduct military operations.
As Rahima's fate hangs in the balance, the doctors and nurses have no idea what lies ahead or how tough things are going to get.
Trauma team to the emergency department.
This has just appeared at the front gate of the camp from a road traffic collision of some sort.
At Camp Bastion's military hospital, the doctors are still trying to persuade their bosses that 5-year-old Rahima should be given life-changing skin grafts to her hand.
if it's looking pretty okay tomorrow, she may not even have to stay that long.
Meanwhile, Lawrence and Hawkins are on a meal break and wondering whether they should eat healthy or fat.
That's healthy, and that's Fat Boys there.
So the left-hand tent is all the healthy option, and then on the right-hand side it's more your chips and different things that are going to be fat man's food.
And of course, we being the gods that we are to nutrition and fitness, are going to go in healthy. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm starving.
In the hospital, the verdict is in. The doctors can operate on Rahima's hand, but there are conditions.
If we can keep the bed state somewhere between green and amber, and it's in green at the moment, the hope is that we can hold her and do what we can. If we were to take a hit with casualties and the bed state flicks to red, then we do have to get everyone out.
Fortunately, one of the ER's senior surgeons, John McMaster, has the experience to do this sort of complex skin grafting. And Dr. Guthrie, as always, is keen to help.
This is the sort of thing that would normally fall under the remit of plastic surgeons or hand surgeons back in the UK.
This civilian stuff is going to carry on.
Yeah, there should be a hand trauma.
There should be a hand trauma.
Trauma team to the emergency department. Trauma team to the emergency department.
The call to arms is not what McMaster and Guthrie want to hear. The ER is now on red alert. Fortunately, there is only one patient. Another little girl who's been in a traffic accident and is critically ill.
This has just appeared at the front gate of the camp from a road traffic collision of some sort, apparently. That's all we know. Obviously unresponsive. Looks like a head injury. There's some bruising of the lower abdomen.
Trying to save the child's life is David Hawkins, who's switched from his extrovert court jester role to be the lead trauma nurse.
It's coming up to 28 years I've been in the NHS, but I have never seen such trauma in children as I've seen out here.
In the operating theatre, McMaster and Guthrie have reached the crucial part of the skin grafting. They need to be able to finish.
The back of the hand was stripped of everything apart from the tendons, and it's important that those tendons can function because it's our only hand. So we've moved skin around and we've done some skin grafting to cover everything left over.
It will be some hours before the doctors will know whether their unusual surgery has been a success or not. In the ER, trauma nurse Hawkins and his team are fighting a losing battle.
Emergency laparotomy to fix. So we're not the CPR on. Got 8 fixed dilated pupils at the den. Yeah, fixed dilated pupils at the den. And no respiratory effort. Sorry, and 8 systole. When I stop, call it. Yeah.
That's our first child death that we've had. It's very sad. For anyone to say that that does not affect them, then they shouldn't be in the job.
But it's only afterwards that you actually reflect on that could have been my son, or that kid is the same age as my son.
And it is a coping mechanism that I've got used to, that I'm able to do the business. I'll do what I need to do, and then I will switch off and I will become Dave the extrovert again, and I will, I'll have my laughing mechanism or whatever, because that is certainly something that we require out here.
And for Hawkins to switch off usually means switching on the video camera.
You seem to be buying a lot of sweets and crisps when you're supposed to be on a diet.
Well, the doctor said I must eat properly.
Do you think a bag of crisps every night's eaten properly, do you?
I do.
But
I don't eat them unless I've had a full supper.
Back in Musa Kala, Lance Corporal Story's Frontline first aid post is again under siege. The children wounded with Rahima have come to have their bandages changed.
Lots of shrapnel wounds, and she was taken to Bastion and her wounds were treated there. As we saw her a little while ago, she wasn't a very happy girl. She was crying and she was in a bit of pain. The wounds have healed very nicely and she's a nice happy little girl. She's smiling, squeezing my fingers. She's a very brave little girl, and her brother as well. Very brave. Good girl.
At Camp Bastion, Rahima is also in good spirits and on her way home to Musa Kala. Her new hand will be fine, provided the suicide bombers leave her alone.
She's given me a lot to live for, and if I'm feeling down, I'll think about her and the achievements that she's gained. And she's got to put a smile on everybody's faces because she was such a beautiful child.
You couldn't help but be impressed by her resilience and enchanted by her smiling and playing as she recovered. She's a pretty plucky little character. I think she'll do very well.
You see?
She truly has become a little angel. Here was a girl who was on death's door and shouldn't have survived the day that she came in, but she did. And I think everybody has had dealings with her in some way. So when she did leave, it was actually a great delight and a joy that we're seeing a miracle.
Next time on Doctors and Nurses at War, trouble in the ER.
Hang on a sec, let's stop and move into the operating theatre. This guy needs to lose both legs in short order.
As Dr. Guthrie tries to save the life and limbs of a Royal Marine.
I don't want any surgeon chopping off my leg because that's probably the right thing to do. I want him to cut my leg off because it's the only option.